What's up, y'all? My name's Isaac, and this is the Worship Tone. Today, we have a very dear friend of mine, Joe Augello. You'll see him on the other side of the screen. Amazing guitar player, very dear friend to my heart. Traveled the world, traveled the States. I believe he's in Nashville now, from New York to LA to Nashville. He's played with a plethora of people, some of the big Christian artists. Israel Houghton has been the MD for Free Chapel. BJ Putnam. Am I saying that right?
Putnam.
Putnam. Adam Rainey, Lucia Parker now plays for Gary LeVox for Rascal Flatts. Burton Cummings, and next year will be an official member of the Guess Who. So, Joe, how's it going, brother?
What's up, man? It's good to see your face.
Likewise, likewise.
It's been a long time.
It has been a long, long time.
We uh we had a very great journey together.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I
I
knew
could.
you when you were this big.
I know. Now I had to zoom. I had to zoom the camera out to fit me in. You know. You knew me
You're
when I could ride your pedal board case down the
That's
ramp.
right. That's
There you
right.
go.
Oh man, those were the days.
Heck yeah.
hmm
Um, Joe, do you want to kind of give a little background of how we know each other?
Yeah. Well, we met in Abundant Living Family Church, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And yeah, it was a great season, you know. I really felt that God um really wanted me there, you know. And I just watched um how things evolved, not just in the worship side of things, but just to see the church grow the way that it did, and how it evolved and how it
Correct.
changed. And
Yep.
you really get to see, I've done this for a long time, and it's very interesting to see how God takes um, His people.
Yes, sir.
There's seasons, and the seasons change just like they do outside. And yeah, it was a very fruitful and important time in my life. And yeah, I got a whole new bunch of friends, and a whole new family, and a bunch of new musicians that I never knew before. And yeah, it was great. And I think without sounding like anyway, but I think God put me there um, to to be an example, and to be an influence
Exactly.
um, in that building, for the team, and just in general, and you get to see, just like anything else, how God can give you wisdom, and I felt like that was a time in my life where I needed to grow spiritually, but also mentally, and yeah, I learned a lot about myself, and my gift, and how to use it, and why um I had to use it. The big word I would say is purpose. And I'll probably talk a lot about that during this time.
Heck yeah.
Um, yeah. We'll get to that.
Yes, sir. Yeah,
But yeah, so
I'd really say big, a big influencer, kind of even to, like I said, dear friend, growing up. I don't know. I must have been junior high, like 15. No, yeah, somewhere around there, like 15, 16 years old. And man, we had Joe. I was already going to the church. We had Joe. Um, sure enough, came, played, just blew the roof off the place. I could probably find some old videos and stuff, and maybe throw them in there. But yeah, and I just I was serving in production, and I just came up to him. I was like, "What's up, man? My name's Isaac," and he's like, "What's up, man? My name's Joe." And from there, it was just, man, we were
you're like
I
my
guess
little
we,
brother, man.
yes, sir. He was Uncle Joe, man. He was Uncle Joe. He was a big
Yeah.
brother. And
Yeah, man.
I could you not, every week, man, service ended. I think that we'll get to that in, further episodes and stuff. But even like serving, for people
Hmm.
out there just learning, like, man, I would just have conversations and conversations.
Hmm.
But it was even to where, service ends, man, go pick up the pedal board, put it in your case for you,
You earned your
pack,
stripes,
yeah,
my friend. You
pack
earned
the
your medals.
guitar for you, and just to serve,
Hmm. I
and
wish I
so
could have taken you on the road, man, because
I know.
I could have used you. You
Yes,
were
sir.
better than a lot of the texts that I've had on the road, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did get to go one time with you to that Christmas tree lighting. That was really fun.
with Robin. With
Yep.
Robin Thicke. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that was fun.
that
Hmm.
was I guess if you would
Hmm.
say a dream come true. It was a cool, very very cool experience.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, man. I'm glad you got to do that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hmm.
All right, Joe. So obviously, you play worship music. You do play, I guess if you would say, secular music as well. Very
Hmm.
well versed in a lot of areas. So mainly, I just kind of want to talk. Obviously, you play guitar, so I want to talk about, your tone, your expression, kind of through the guitar, through worship. Like you
Hmm.
said, your
Hmm.
purpose, and just some of the gear that you use. I guess if
Yeah.
you want to share some secrets, some tips, just kind of put us all on, man.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do
Heck
it,
yeah.
man.
All right. So let's start with the first question, or kind
Mhm.
of just first topic. Can you walk us through kind of your creative process when preparing for a worship session or
Mhm.
service? So basically, either whether you're writing music or
Mhm.
playing, Sunday morning, so you get the set list on Tuesday, or you get the
Mhm.
set list, Saturday night.
Yeah. Well, it's my process, and I guess I don't know if it's any different than anyone else, but the first thing I do is try and be very open. So if I'm gonna work on a song, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna listen to it at least 3 or 4 times without even touching my instrument. The first time I'm just listening
Okay.
to the whole picture, and just taking in the vibe and taking the message in. Whether it's a worship song or it's blurred lines.
Yeah.
It's in that case it's all the same. Um, so yeah, the first time I just listen, and I just mainly, for no, I'm not thinking of arrangement, I'm not thinking about guitar parts, I'm not thinking even about lyrics. I'm just taking the whole picture in. On the second listen, I listen for the arrangement, and
Okay.
you know, maybe at that time I'll start to make some notes,
Okay.
just some kind of arrangement notes. Um, on the third time, I'm listening for the guitar parts,
Yeah.
and that's when I start to really really dig in. And no matter what I'm doing, no matter whose song I'm playing, that isn't mine. My first goal is to honor the music. you know um and the way, as a guitar player, that I do it is to play these songs like I wrote them. That doesn't mean that I'm going to rewrite them. you know um
Definitely.
but it's a method that I just kind of spiritually connect to the fingers that are on that record. And I, with, especially now with the technology, with things like Moises and stuff, where you can isolate the guitars, or in the worship world we have multi tracks. So that makes it a lot easier and a lot more efficient. But I listen to more than just the notes. I listen to the intention, and I listen to the purpose. Whether it's just an eighth note kind of thing, or if it's something really deep and complex. Um, And then I start to learn. Then I start to physically learn the parts. And I try and do it with no effects, with no amp or anything, just seeing how my fingers can make the sounds with
Okay.
without any other outside help,
Okay.
and that's when you start to channel what's in those speakers, again, the purpose, it transcends the how to the why. Why is this happening? Why is this note, you know, out of tune? It's supposed to be, or why is this bend not where it's going to be, where you think it would be, or whatever. Why is you know, the delay not in time? That's what makes it special. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I start to really dig in, and I do make notes, and I do make charts, but I'm one of those people that once I write something down, it's here, you know. So that's sort of like the basis of everything. Then I plug in, and then
Okay.
I do my tone work, But a lot of it really comes from the hands, and I try and make that, the goal, with worship music, especially in the CCM world. um, you can get overwhelmed and burnt out with what's on the floor, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yes,
You
sir.
know, um, that's why I don't like to use the word tone um, plurally. There's no such thing as tones. You know, a a pedal makes a sound, an amp makes a sound.
Yeah.
The tone is this. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
there's no tones. That's it's one of my little pet peeves in this online YouTube world. To me, the word tone is very sacred, and I don't look at it the way maybe most people look at it. It's your soul. The tone is in your, not just in your hands. It's in your heart. It's in your body. It's in, that's where it comes from. You know. So, and I've always been like that. So to me, and maybe that's why I sound the way I sound when I play. I'm not your typical worship musician. For better or for worse, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll play at a church and I'm like, uh-oh,
Yeah.
But again, to me, it's all about the purpose. So yeah, so that's kind of how I go about it. When it comes to the sounds, I have my go-to stuff, and they're probably not what everybody else uses, but I know how to make it work. I know how to make it work without that stuff.
Exactly. Now, I know we're talking about tone.
Hmm.
Or sorry, not tone.
Yeah, yeah.
But like let's get this. Like who shaped you? You know?
Oh wow. Well, my first guitar hero was actually the pastor of my church. When I was growing up, I went to this church, the Church of the Nazarene, and this was in the 70s. It
Okay.
shows you how old I am. The late 70s. Worship team, I guess you could say, which it was like a 70s rock band. They
And this
sounded
is
like
back
Led
in New York,
Zeppelin.
right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. The church was in New Jersey, but it was very
Okay.
close to us. It was like maybe 40 minutes from my house. And we were very involved in the church. In fact, the pastor's family and me and my parents, like we were like carbon copies of each other, And what was really cool is I just the son, my pastor's son, and me just reunited for the first time in like 40 years a
Dang, that's
couple
awesome.
months ago.
Heck
Yeah,
yeah.
so it was really crazy. Yeah, our pastor was this incredible guitar player. He played like Hendrix and Jimmy Page and Eric Clapton,
Heck
And
yeah.
so me and his son, who's a drummer, we would just sit there. They would let us sit on the altar, and just our ears would be blown. We had Marshall stacks and everything, and they made an album at one point, and I got to go into the studio. It was the first time I was in a recording studio, and just these big amps, and that's what kind of sort of got me right there. I was like, oh man, this is what I should be doing. Like, I never I never said to myself I was going to be a musician. Always was.
Okay.
I think it chose me.
Yes,
And
sir.
you know, when I saw these guys, I was like, oh, they do what I do. Not like, oh, I want to do what they do. It was
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah, that's what I do. Um, but yeah, that was the beginning of it. And I was very fortunate to grow up in a time where the guitar was very prevalent in every kind of music. Whether it was obviously pop stuff of the '80s and the hard rock music, and even in R&B and hip hop, which was happening down. I grew up basically where hip hop was invented. It
Yeah.
was a part of my DNA, which was great. It was like down the street from me. You know. So, but there was guitars in that stuff too. So it was great because I would just learn. I was like a sponge. I learned everything. And then MTV came out. So I never left my basement. Because now I can see the people, not only who heard on the radio, but I could see them playing. So
Yep.
I would just copy what they were doing. And so yeah, it became that. And I guess when I heard Van Halen for the first time, it changed a lot of things for me.
Heck yeah.
And that's probably the most important influence that I have as far as, okay, I want to do that, that way.
Yep.
And before that, I mean, I was listening to a lot of like, I was growing up in the disco era when I was a kid. And so, which was really cool because I could pick up my guitar and a lot of it was like single notes, like single, like R&B funky stuff, and I didn't even realize that I knew that that was the guitar part. I would just pick up my acoustic and play, and learn these like Michael Jackson lines and all this other stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So a lot of it was like clean stuff. So that, again, it's in the hands. Trying to make that stuff sound good isn't as easy as you think it is. Especially when you don't have any help, you know, with your
Exactly.
with your gear. You have to make it sound like it. And yeah, that was probably, a you know, just a homogenized version of what made up my musical DNA. The R&B funk stuff and the hard rock stuff.
Yes,
Mixed
sir.
with the pop.
Yep, yep.
Oh,
Now,
so,
will you kind of take us into we'll hit one kind of era of your
mm-hmm,
time, which
mm-hmm,
we'll go into the free chapel days.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I know you've written a lot of songs with them
mm-hmm,
and for them. And I kind of want to incorporate this question on how you approach kind of collaboration with the band.
mm-hmm,
How do you ensure everyone's voice is heard? So same thing
mm-hmm,
going back to pedals, with wet effects to keyboards
mm-hmm,
to different things
mm-hmm.
like that. I'll let you take it
Right,
away.
right. Well, I think when we did the Echo record, um, it was a very fruitful time, man. Talking about God just stepping in and giving us this gift of these songs, that became very, very, very prevalent in the worship world. Not even our versions, that they were re-recorded by other artists and stuff. But it's very hard to explain how that all happened. I can tell you, one of the songs that I wrote on that record was a song called "No Thing," and I was on tour, playing with Robin Thicke. I was like in Canada or something, and this was before, like, live streaming was very prevalent in our world.
Yeah.
and it was a Sunday, and I was sick, and I was in my hotel room, and I was just missing church. I was missing my family, and just not being there. And I said, I have to do something. I have to be um, spiritually taken care of today. So I said, I want to write a song that I can look out into the congregation, and I just want to see everybody bouncing up and down, like a
Heck
Foo
yeah.
Fighters song or something. So I was sitting in my bed. I was like really really tired and not feeling well, and nothing was happening. So I said, you know what? I know what I'm gonna do. I strapped my guitar on. I stood on my bed and I just started jumping up and down, and this cool riff came out, and I was like, wait, I think I'm on to something. So I just started, with that. And the whole time that I was coming up with the parts, that was in my head. Like I want this for the people. I want this for the congregation. I want them to be affected. I want them to be moved. And so I just started, it just came out. And when it came time that we were going to do the record, I could go on for hours about how we constructed these songs because it was pretty amazing. But we were listening to stuff. I remember Israel came the night before we were going to start to like rehearse and kind of start the creative process of the record. And it was a Sunday night, and everybody kind of brought ideas to the table. And I was listening. I'm like, hmm. But I didn't say anything. I didn't bring anything to the table just yet. One of the songs was Res Power that became, pretty at that time it became a pretty popular song in the worship world. And so we had that, and a couple of the guys were, bringing stuff. And I was like, I don't know, man. And then everybody went home except me and Adam Raney, our worship leader. And and he's like, "How do you feel?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. Some of this stuff, we'll do our thing with it." And I said, "I have this song, this track, and I think it's gonna be great." And he's like, "Well, where is it?" And I was like, "It's in my car." I actually recorded like the whole thing,
Really, really.
when I got home. And he's like, why didn't you bring it into the meeting? I was like, I don't know. I didn't think it was going to be any good. I was like, so hang on. So I had a CD, and I came in, I played it, and he was like, why didn't you play this for everybody? I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is exactly what we want. So yeah, so the next day we started working on it, and we just went through the motions. It was great to do it with Israel. You know, he's a great mentor to me. He's a big, huge influence on me before I even met him. And then he became a friend and a songwriting partner, which was
Yep.
great. But to be around someone like that who's so anointed, and it just flows from them. I've been really, really blessed to be around great, great songwriters. And to watch the creative process happen. And the one thing that I've learned, the most important thing, is not to be so sacred with your ideas. You can kill it can be a buzzkill if you just don't let go and just let it
Exactly.
come out, even if it's terrible. It's okay. Let it come out. Don't deprive yourself of what might happen, whether it's good or bad. So, I was in awe of that and of how it was going. And there was one day which was we were just going through some stuff, and we were going to take a lunch break. And Israel was like, "Hey, I have this song called Jesus at the Center. I kind of got an idea for it, but you guys go to lunch, and I'm gonna work on it." And he took Adam and our other worship leader Micah, and they just kind of sat in the in the seats in the sanctuary. I'm sorry, I'm I'm getting old.
Yeah.
So the guys in the band went to lunch. We come back, and Israel's like, hey, we want to just play through this song. I'll kind of direct you, and he said to our sound guy, just hit record. We don't know what's gonna happen, and we played Jesus at the Center as if we knew the song for like years.
Yeah.
And what came out was the most heavy experience I've ever had musically. I can't even explain it. And we just kind of knew what to do. The parts came from above. The whole thing, the arrangement, it was just, I've never seen anything or been a part of anything that happened like that.
That's
And
awesome.
we just took it all the way that we could take it. And then we finished it. And we were all in a circle. We did it, the whole band was just in this circle and facing each other. And it was just, we finished the song and there's silence for like 5 minutes. I have this all recorded somewhere. And you just hear like the weeping, of all of us. Like,
Wow.
just, it was so emotional. That there are times when, again, you can work and work on something and you can beat it to death. And then there's sometimes where you just let it come out. And that was
Exactly.
that was definitely one of them. That was a huge experience for me. So yeah, there's no way, there's no one way to be creative. There's no one way to write a song. I live in Nashville where things are very structured, and they have their sort of format of how to do things.
Yeah.
And I don't work that way. I try, because you have to kind of fit in. And I've written with some big writers and stuff. And everybody has their whole, their own process. But I try not to get away from, again, the purpose. The purpose is the main goal with everything. you know Especially in worship music.
Exactly.
um,
Now, I would say that you are kind of a David in today's generation, a true worshiper.
mhm.
Even from, and maybe I can put some clips in of you playing
Huh.
or anything like that. But
Oh.
the one thing I want to ask you is, what advice would you give someone to even like, me as I was a
Mhm.
production guy, sitting in the lighting
Mhm.
booth, and
Mhm.
I came up to you, man, I want to play guitar.
Mhm.
I wanna just let my, I guess if you would say, expression of worship just come out. So
Mhm.
what advice do you give to somebody that is, doesn't matter the age, but just kind of wants
Mhm.
to get in, and it's not, they don't have to be playing on stage or anything like that, but
Mhm.
even in their room to just kind of minister to the Lord.
Yeah, yeah. Well, in a church setting, you really have to. Musicians are driven by ego. There's no doubt about it. There's no we can't get away from it.
Yeah,
It's definitely driven by ego, but um, again, the purpose is the main objective. Especially in this last 5 years, our whole world, our whole society has changed completely. And I saw this at Abundant Living through COVID. We were able to stay open. We were able to function on a different kind of level, but people were still coming. And even when things were lifted, I started to look out into the crowd. I'm like, wow, these people are coming here. They're coming here with riddled with fear. To be around other people, um, to be outside in general. Um, they're not making any money, you know. Their their lives are in a very different place. Um, and that's where you have to separate entertainment from purpose, you know. So to me, I look out to the congregation, I'm like, these people are coming here with all of these things happening, you know. As far as being entertained, they can do that, on their phone all day. So if
Yep.
they're coming here riddled with fear, riddled with anxiety, and you know, no money, and whatever, they don't want to just be entertained. They need to be moved. So how do you do that? You have to be those people in those seats. You have to reach them. And again, it goes back to playing these songs like you wrote them. It's taking those certain times where you have to, and things that I would tell you, where you have to dig in a little more, where you have to, wake them up a little more. You have to, the power of music. It's so important. We're healers, and that's not everybody understands that. It's the one thing that I tell people, even now in the bands that I play. We have the power to heal these people. You know, um, Whether it's in a worship setting, or like, I play with an artist named Burton Cummings, who's the singer for this classic rock band, the Guess Who. He has all these hits, that they're these timeless hits. That everybody knows. And they come there to hear these songs because they bring back a memory, or they make them feel good. you know so you have to give them what they want. It's not about us. With guitar players, and I've watched this for many years. We're all about us. We're all about the solos, we're all about the lead lines, we're all about the look at me, guitar hero, um stuff. Um, but that you can't, when you're ministering to somebody, you can't minister that way. You can't put yourself in the driver's seat. You know, you have
Exactly.
to you have to take a back seat, and you have to listen. You have to listen. And it's very, not everybody can understand that. So that's sort of my message to someone who would want to do this. This is not a gig. This is not time to show off. There's purpose with this. Yeah, you can move somebody with an A chord. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's your intention. And the connection. Music is an emotion, but it's more of a connection than it is um that. You're connecting to your instrument, you're connecting to the other people in the band, and then you're connecting to the song, and then you're connecting to the people that you're ministering to. And those are the things you have to understand right off the bat. And that's my advice to everyone. I told you all that stuff back
Yes,
then,
sir.
and you understood it. Not everybody that was in our circle could understand that. And doesn't mean that they're bad musicians. But there's again, there's purpose in what we do. You know, honoring the music, honoring the message. That's really what it's all about. You can have the most expensive delay pedal, you know, but what are you gonna do with it? You know, um, yeah, man. I think that's the purpose again. You
That's
know,
awesome. Heck yeah.
yeah.
All right, Joe.
Um,
Walk me through kind of like your main live rig right now. So, what guitars are you playing?
mhm.
What kind of pickups you
Okay.
got in them?
All
Kind
right.
of run me
Well,
down your rig real quick.
Well, I have two separate rigs right now because I'm doing completely different gigs at the moment. I've been
Okay.
very blessed, you know. I'm playing with Burton and the guys in the Guess Who, and that's more of like a um, classic rock band, 60s, 70s songs, where my sounds don't really change much, and then I play with Gary LeVox from time to time, doing, you know, I guess you could call it country music, pop music, where it's a little more involved when it comes to sounds and stuff. But the guitars are kind of the same. Um, I've been using the carving guitars for a long time, and those guitars were custom made for me. And the my main one is it's a semi hollow guitar, and I could basically do any gig with that guitar. I played it, with Robin, for a whole show. I played it with the Backstreet Boys for a whole show. With Gary, I could play it with a whole show. Well, we have different tunings, so I can't do that. But that's been like the center of my tonal experience. That's my main car. You know,
Heck yeah.
um, and it's a semi hollow, and it's all mahogany except for the top is koa, so it's a little spankier on the top end, and so I can get lots of different sounds. It's got humbuckers and it's got DiMarzio PAFs in it, so it's kind of like a Les Paul 335, and I can split the coils, and I can really get like telly-ish sounds and stuff. So and it has a piezo bridge on it as well. So I can the acoustic sounds on it are ridiculous. It sounds incredible. And it has a 13 pin to do like guitar synth, which I don't do. But the option is there if I want to. I could,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I could do that. But yeah, I could do pretty much any gig with that guitar. It's definitely my main one. But yeah, with Gary I use that. I have another um Carvin that's kind of it looks like a PRS, but it's not at all. And that has a little more oomph in it. It has some hotter pickups in it. But it's a mahogany body, maple top like a Les Paul, double cutaway, and it has DiMarzio's in it as well. They're a little hotter ones, and Floyd Rose. I'm an '80s guy, so I'm a Floyd Rose guy. And then I have a backup for it. Well, usually I use another carving that's kind of the same, um, but I just got this Strat um, not too long ago, and this amethyst Strat, and it's
It's a good
so I've
looking
been
guitar
using
right there.
this. Yeah, yeah, it's you can see how the light changes and stuff, and yeah, so I've been using this because the PRS looking one we tuned down to E flat. So I keep this in E flat, and I use it. I go back and forth between the two, and then the Carvin, the semi hollow. I have that and a Les Paul, and those are in standard tuning. And the Les Paul is pretty mighty. It's a good one.
Heck yeah.
Um, so with as far as um, like pedals and stuff, well, I'm using a Fender Twin, and I go stereo in both bands. I use a Fender Twin, and then I have a
Now, what are your
universal.
settings on the twin?
Pretty much everything's at 5. Everything is like straight up, and I just crank it, and depending on the room, I'm lucky with both artists. I get to play through an amp,
Yes, sir.
which is great. And then for the to make it stereo, I have a UA Lion pedal,
Okay, okay.
and that's like their like Marshall, in a box,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
literally, and that thing sounds great. I just bought it like one day on the road because I thought it was really cool, and and we had a gig that night, and I was like, hey, let me just plug it in and see what it sounds like, and it was like gigantic, so that was that that's like a whole game changer for me. So I bring that wherever I go, and as far as like drives go, um, my main drive, and I use it for both gigs, is the Love Pedal Purple Plexi, and that thing is just it's the best Marshall in a box that I've ever heard, and I got tons of those, you know. So yeah, so I use that. I use the Nobles every now and then with Gary, um, but it's mostly just the Plexi, you know, and a volume pedal or my volume knob, you know. You know, I use a delay. I have like a on this gig I have the Boss DD 200, so it's kind of got like all, you know, a best of almost like a timeline. I was using the timeline for a long time, and I was sick of it, you know. I was sick of it when I got it, you know. So, you know, I'm that guy. As soon as I see like three or four people using what I have, I change it, you know. So I was like one of the first guys to have that pedal, you know, and then all of a sudden I went to every church and they have one. I was like, okay, I'm taking that one off. So
Yeah.
I'm a Boss guy. I love Boss pedals. So so I use that. Yeah, you know, and just a bunch of, you know, there's a part where I use an octave, and then there's a tremolo and a chorus pedal. You know, I'll use that for Gary, and that's basically it. For Burton, it's kind of the same thing. I use my Plexi. I have a Space Echo delay, and I use a tremolo and a univibe for a couple of songs. You know, there's certain, you know, signature sounds that you need for
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
songs. You know, but yeah, with both of those gigs, I don't really play any clean stuff. You know,
Okay.
where I was always, you know, with Robin and a lot of the pop stuff, I was always, you know, heavy on the clean stuff. So this is there's not a lot of tap dancing in any of this stuff, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, so that's, you know, that's really what I use, and it's kind of, yeah, it's kind of similar in both gigs, you know. It's kind of interchangeable.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Now, I've seen you do some acoustic stuff. What do you got
hmm
on your acoustic setup?
um and for Burton, I have an actual acoustic board. I have two boards
Okay.
with me. So I've been using a J45. Yeah, yeah, we rent them when we're on the road. So I played through a Gibson J45, which I love, and I need to get one. Um, and then I just have what is it? The LR bags. The what is it called? The Venue, I think. Their
Yeah, yeah,
big
yeah.
preamp thing, and just that through a reverb into a Neve preamp, so it's nice and full. And yeah, I don't play any acoustic with Gary. We have another guitar player that does all the utility stuff. But yeah, and it sounds incredible with Burton. There's a lot of acoustic in that gig, you know.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm a Gibson guy mostly with that stuff. Even though at home I have my McPherson, and sometimes we'll do acoustic shows with Gary, and I'll take the McPherson with me.
Okay.
And
Okay.
but with Burton, I'm mainly like a Les Paul guy, and I just got this too. My new it's a Custom Shop 54 reissue with P90s. This thing is the greatest.
Heck yeah.
Like, oh, it sounds incredible. So yeah, so that's basically it, man. You know.
Now, when you're on the road or kind of just
Mhm.
playing, what do you use for? I guess if you want to call them in ears, like what do you use for monitoring? Or you guys
Um,
using like amps? I mean,
mm,
speakers on the stage or?
mm-mm. No, both gigs I'm on in ears. I've been with Ultimate Ears for almost 20 years now, you
Okay.
know. And I just got some new ones, thank God. And they're great, man. You know, it's so valuable to invest in good monitoring, you know. I'll never use a wedge
Yeah.
anymore, you
Now, do you
know.
use them in your home studio?
No, 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 no. Not, you mean my in-ears?
Yeah.
No. Mm-mm. No. I have some big cans here, you know. So I'll use those. But the ones that I use are the sevens, I think. And you know, they're very, very they're not flat, but they're very accurate. You know, there's no added bass or anything, so I get to really hear my sound the way it's supposed to be, you know.
That's awesome.
So it doesn't have like 34 drivers in them,
Yeah. Now, what's
So
behind you when you track stuff? For any
mhm.
sessions, what are you
Yeah.
using? You using Pro
Um
Tools,
yeah, I'm a Pro
Ableton?
Tools guy.
Heck yeah.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. I did it's funny, I was when Ableton first came out, it was called Live, and this was like when I first moved to LA, and I had a buddy who was like a product specialist for M Audio, and so he would bring me with him on these clinics and stuff, and I would learn how to use it, and
Yeah.
show how you can do all this crazy stuff. And this was like back in 2003, but that was the last time I used it. I was like, this is more of a DJ thing. Now it's like everybody uses it. It's
Yep.
become like the such a mainstay for everything. Which I love, but I don't use it to record. I'm a Pro Tools guy.
Okay. Okay.
And as far as recording guitars, I do it a couple of different ways. I have some amps here. These are like I don't know if you can see them from here. This is my divider by 13. This is the JRT 915. So it has two sets of power tubes. So I can go from EL 84s, which is kind of like a AC 15, and then it goes to 6V6, which is kind of like a deluxe, like a Fender Deluxe. So it's pretty versatile amp, and I use it all, so much. And then this is it's a Blankenship Variplex. It's like it's a
Man,
Marshall.
Roy's a
Yeah.
cool guy.
Yes, he is. He is. He's a good boy. And this thing is incredible. It's a modified plexi, so I can get like, your basic Marshall sounds, but then it does a lot of other things too. So I use these, when you listen to a lot of records, especially the classics, they didn't, there wasn't much available back then. You had three kinds of amps. You had a Fender, you had a Marshall, and you had a Vox. There was other things. There was an Orange. It was Orange amps and high watts, but mostly, that was your three choices. And the same with the guitars, we
Exactly.
had four. We had a Strat, a Tele, a Les Paul, and like a hollow body, whether it's a 335 or a 137 or something. There wasn't many options like there is now. We're
Exactly.
living in a great era of guitar, with all these great things happening. You can, again, it's like the songwriting thing. You can just be overwhelmed and not really focus on what is important. So I can get any sound with these two amps.
Now, does
I have
the Legacy still make a appearance?
Yeah, yeah, I have two of them right there. And I just bought an actual vintage 65 deluxe reverb,
Okay.
and I just got a 1972 100-watt Marshall super bass, which is, yeah, it's it's a beast.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I have those, but I still, these are my main amps when I'm recording.
Okay.
And then I still mic my cabinets, and if it's late at night, I'll tap into this thing, the Ox. This thing is incredible. Probably one of the greatest inventions in the last 10 years as far as guitar goes. This thing is incredible. And the same guy, James Santiago, made the Lion pedal. So
Okay.
James, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I mean that's really it. If I'm gonna add effects, unless it's something very specific, I'll use pedals or I'll just do some plug-in stuff. But I try and keep it very close to the source.
Okay.
I've been recording since I was 10 years old, so I know how to mic amps. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was doing sessions, when I was a teenager. So, I know what I'm doing. I got some good preamps here. You don't need a lot of stuff. Again, this is the most important part. This is the most important part.
Yes, sir.
And
Now, um, when you're kind of I know you've played, well, a lot of gigs, sometimes you're only, solo by yourself. But even in the worship,
Mm-hmm.
like kind of spectrum, for a while, you had EG1, EG2, and then for a while you played by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you arrange kind of parts? Whether is it playing lead, rhythm, going
Mm-hmm.
between the two of like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, obviously, I got to play the lead line here that's on the song,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah, yeah. Again, it's honoring the music, you know. So you have to figure out where the strengths are in the parts, and that's really it, I, again, the ego can lead you,
yeah,
when it comes to being a guitar player, where you want to shine, but a lot of times, especially in the worship thing, the most subtle parts are the most important, you know. So, again, I'll just listen to, well, can this move you? No, I don't need it, you know.
yeah,
And then, there would be times, especially I know, like when I'm in the only guitar player there, I'll I'll kind of arrange it where I can play both parts. There's definitely, ways to do it and still have the intention, So, yeah, it depends on the song,
okay, okay, yeah,
you
I
know.
definitely agree.
Mhm.
Now I don't want to take any too much more of your time, but because I've had a blast on here, and I really thank you for
We could
coming
go
out.
all night,
I
man.
know. Shoot, we can go years and years.
Hmm.
Um, but kind of, I just want to ask you a couple last questions. But
Hmm.
what does worship mean to you personally? Beyond the stage.
Hmm. Um, it's your connection with God. It's your heart, um, giving back to what He's given you. Again, I never said I wanted to be a musician. It's just what I am, and I have to honor that. And there's many ways that you can do that beyond your instrument. Again, pouring into the younger people. Being an example, and the wisdom that I was talking about.
Yes, sir.
It goes a long way. We're soldiers, so that it's a lot of responsibility, and you just want to shine, um, not as a player, but as a soul. I think that's really important. You know, God gives you this gift, and you have to take it seriously. Again, that's why I tell people, put yourself in those seats. People come walking in. I have a good story that I'm sure you know about it. Um, you never know who's in those seats. You never know if if this is their last stop before they end it. You have no idea. So you have to be very sensitive. There was one day at Abundant Living, and I'm not saying this to give myself credit at all. And this is not the first time something like this has happened. We ended our service, like one of the morning services, and I was walking off the stage, and this guy came up to me. He was at the foot of the stage, and he was calling my name. Um, I was like, "Hey, man," and he was all tatted up, and he's an older guy. He's probably definitely older than me, and he was like, "Hey, brother, I've been wanting to meet you, and I just, you've been such a blessing to me and my family," and I'm like, "Oh, thanks, man," you know, being grateful that that someone appreciated and is touched by something I did.
Exactly.
And we were just talking, and he was talking about his kids, and he was just like, yeah, I've been trying to get my kids to come here, and they're they're kind of troubled, and I'm kind of getting the vibe of maybe they're gang kind of kids or whatever, and he was just like, yeah, I'm trying to lead them to the Lord. I'm trying to get them on a path. And he goes, I have to tell you something that's that's happened into us. He's like, I had one son, and he was really in a bad place, and I've been trying to get him to come to church, and I'm like, man, you got to come, you got to hear the music, it's so good. And he's like, Dad, I don't want to hear no church music, blah blah, blah. And he was like, one day he finally said, okay. So I brought him in, and he said, when he heard you play, he stood up and he started worshiping, and he's like, and he started crying, and he's like, man, he was like, he gave his life to the Lord, and he just changed his ways and everything. I was like getting all teary eyed
Yeah.
and stuff. I was like, oh man, thanks, and he's like, you did that. And then he started really crying. And I was like, uh-oh, and he was like, last month or whatever, my son got killed. And he said, you know, and he pointed to me and he goes, and you helped put him there in heaven, And I was just like,
Totally undone. Yeah.
I was bawling like a baby, But that's what I'm trying to tell you. We carry this thing that, it's very sacred and it's very important, and you have to honor that, I mean, that messed me up for weeks,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but it also just showed me that this is serious stuff. God gave you this gift, you have to take it seriously. So yeah, that's my advice. Be open, be understanding about what's going on off the stage, because that's really where the message is. Though that's why we're up there. And yeah, it's just, you get these things every now and then to remind you, when I'm like shredding and I'm like, oh, wait a second, hold on.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You have to really put your heart in the right place. There's times for that, there's times where you can have a little fun, but at the same time, you know, I'm not the best guitar player in the world by any means, but I think I know how to connect very well, whether it's at church or if it's at a Robin Thicke concert or, at some club in Rancho or something,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So, it's all about the connection, and the purpose. That's really, you know, the whole gist of this.
Yes, sir.
So,
Well, Joe, I just want to again say thank you for coming on here with me.
oh
It's
man,
actually an honor. This is the first
dude,
episode, so it holds a
well,
special place in my
awesome.
heart. And
Oh man, well,
I
the honor
really,
is all mine,
yeah,
man.
really appreciate you coming on here with me, man.
Oh, call me back anytime.
Yes, sir.
So.